everything okay lighting-wise?
Unclear. The light that happens to be right above my head has decided it just wants to dance.
It's a party.
So we're not going to stare directly into it like I just did.
What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I am a 33-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was determining if it was a book series that we had all been sleeping on as a society, and I said yes. And now I'm seeing if society has also been sleeping on the Heroes of Olympus series. And I'm joined by someone who you've heard on the podcast many a times, who I have known for a high percentage of my life. It is the creator of Breakfast in Beauclair and the person you know from other podcasty things like Lengthy Tangent. It's Alyssa Esteban. Alyssa, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you? When you said 33, it shakes me because we both turned 33 at the same time.
Correct.
/ your anniversary is also my birthday now.
Yes,
and
amazing.
so we have so many milestones recently. So yeah. 33 though, Jesus year, woo!
Oh, woo! It's wild because for the longest time, you were like the only person I knew who had a leap day birthday. So for almost all until my life, leap day was always like, oh yeah, Alyssa Esteban's birthday. Ha ha ha. She's turning, whatever year it was, like 4 3/4 or whatever jokes you would make. And for the longest time, that was leap day, was Alyssa Esteban's birthday. And then now Kelly and I got married on leap day 2020. So now it's like a twofold thing, but it's great. And I know you've always fully leaned in and embraced the leap day thing. Kelly and I do it too.
Yeah.
And, we just have a big party. I mean, we did it one time, but we have a big party every time we have a real anniversary.
And now you also understand the pain of the jokes that come every time.
Right. Gosh. And just not even the jokes, but it's the questions that I'm sure everyone asks you all of the time, oh, which day do you celebrate on?
Yeah.
It's whichever one's most convenient or both, or just any birthday, you pick the Friday or the Saturday closest. It doesn't really, yeah. So I think it's more of just people asking questions that people have heard a million times before.
Yeah.
And Kelly and I, honestly, we just celebrate both days.
Yeah.
This year we celebrated both days. I know you get more loose with the interpretation of the birthday. You did your karaoke annual birthday party, which is always great.
Yes.
You and I doing the 1-2 punch of me going first and doing a Beastie Boys song, you going second and doing Riptide by Vance Joy. Start off the party. It always works.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, man. But yes, we have recently both turned 33, which is wild and ridiculous. But here we are to discuss some incredible chapters of The Son of Neptune. These hit real hard. But before we get into them, it is now your 4th time on the podcast. We've not asked you some of the guest questions that we asked our recurring guests. So this time around, what would your nectar and ambrosia taste like? What is your ideal dream drink? What is your ideal dream food?
Ooh, okay. Gut reaction, dream food would be the perfect Philippine mango.
Ooh.
I don't know if
Okay.
you've ever had Philippine mango, but they do import it. And
I don't
it
know
is
that I've had. Okay, are they the short, the yellow, tiny, Alfonso
small,
mangoes?
Yeah, tiny yellow.
Okay.
But they're so sweet and juicy and perfect, and every bite is absolutely delicious. And I'm just and it tastes like home.
Okay,
I think
that makes sense.
for me, definitely tastes like home. Grew up eating them. I'm sure we're going to talk about Asian heritage over the course of these 2 chapters.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get into that. But yeah, as somebody who is Filipino American, Asian American, that's always something that I think growing up in an Italian, an Irish Catholic community, those are one of the little things that I really understood to be uniquely our culture.
That's awesome. I love it. I think I may have had something similar in that I've had really nice, really soft, sweet Indian mangoes, which were a big deal. So at least geographically, it's closer.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're not exactly the same. But one of my buddies had a wedding in India. His wife is Indian American.
Yeah.
And they were hush hush about the mangoes. We can't give them to everyone, but hey, you can come to our hotel room. We have some of them. It was yo, we can't let everyone at this 200 something person wedding know that we've got the mangoes. But come have the mangoes.
Well, the amazing thing is that you have mango nectar. So it's just a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the food. The ambrosia.
Oh.
What do we got? Or sorry, that was the food. Sorry, we did the food. What's the drink? The drink.
If not mango nectar.
Oh, you're saying mango nectar. Gotcha. Okay, that's what you're saying.
We're just going all in.
Cool, of course. You just double fully commit. I get it. That makes sense. No. Oh, you're right. I thought you were just like, oh, by the way, mango nectar exists. And I was like, yes, I have had mango nectar before. It is good.
Again, it's like 8:30 on a Friday. We're not okay.
I just put the baby to sleep. It's been a day.
My baby has had diarrhea for 24 hours. We're not okay.
Yeah, your fur baby, my human baby, all of the babies, all of the struggles,
yes,
but all of the wonderful times. But now that we've knocked out that question, we can get into these chapters. They're both Frank chapters. We're going to begin with chapter 46. Now, where we last left our heroes at the end of chapter 45, we had a big fight on the horizon. We had Thanatos being chained up. We had Frank seeming like he was going to burn the life stick to get them. Hazel's charging at Alcyonius. Like, all the stuff is going down. It's really, really intense right now. Now, I did have a couple of things that I wrote in my notes between recording last episode with Joel and this episode. Two things. I wrote, one, whenever Frank's power works, he's going to become a bear. We'll see if that was kind of close, maybe not. The second one, I've been coming to grips with the line from the prophecy that says the son of Neptune will drown. And I'm trying to think, who's the son of Neptune going to be? I don't feel like it would be Percy. It feels weird, like he wouldn't drown. I'm still unsure if that line is referring to when he quote unquote drowned in the muskeg with Gia. I don't know if that was the drowning. So I did write in my notes, Arion is going to drown because Arion, the horse, is technically a son of Neptune. And that felt like a out of left field, you wouldn't predict it thing. But then part of me was like, is Rick really going to kill a horse? It's an interesting thing that I don't know what this says about society, but I feel like if an animal in this book died, people would be more upset than if a person died. Like, if Arion died, I feel like people would be more bummed out about it than like Beckendorf's death. And I'm not a pet person at all, so I think that doesn't make sense, but I do also recognize people are, you watch a movie, right? You watch Batman Dark Knight. He beats the crap out of people, and you're like, okay, whatever. He throws those dogs over the ledge, and everyone's like, what the hell just happened? Like, it's very strange.
Yeah.
Not that I'm condoning animal abuse, but it's like, we're always way more protective of our fur friends than humans sometimes.
I feel like there's a level of innocence there that you don't really want to touch, or that something like that gets people riled up, or as you said, like people are just shocked by it or significantly more sensitive to it. I'm pinning things in my head.
yeah. But again, and even with these two chapters, like I don't fully know. I feel like it's not going to be until the book is over that I'm going to think, okay, now who was the son of Neptune and what was the drowning? We'll see what's up. But let's get into chapter 46. It begins with, quote, Frank unwrapped the firewood and knelt at the feet of Thanatos. And my guess here for what was happening, because I don't feel great about Frank's overall chances across the series, making it out unscathed. I don't think he's going to die right here and now. Feels a little too quick. So my thought was that he's going to partially burn it. It's going to get to scary, oh no, is it going to completely burn levels, but he's not going to die. So that's what I wrote in my notes before starting. Frank hears Percy and Arion/Hazel fighting above him, but he focuses on the task at hand. His hands are shaking, and he merely just thinks of flames, and the wood catches fire. Now, I'm worried for my boy Frank here, because if all he needs to do is think about fire to make the stick catch flame.
Right.
What is going to happen when he meets Leo Valdez, fire friend, and Leo says, hello, my powers include fire. And then Frank goes, fire? And then he is it that easy? I hope it's an intentional thing. But if he just happens to think about like, oh yeah, candles, like, is it going to catch on fire? That worries me.
That is an interesting thought. And again, I'm going to continue to pin it. What do you think could happen if Frank and Leo meet?
If Frank and Leo meet, oh man. I feel like they will get along. They both kind of seem in similar roles in the trio. Not that they are the same character, but they are both like competent, but not necessarily the greatest fighter, though Frank might be changing that narrative in these two chapters. And usually some of the comedy comes through them. Leo, it's more silly antics. Frank, it's usually more of him being the straight man character in the scene, like a straight man in an improv
Roman
scene.
is Roman, right?
Yeah, right. And he just like him just, asking the questions like, wait, what? Like he does that all the time, which is very funny. The person will point out the ridiculousness of the scenario. So I feel like the humor channels through both of them in these trios. I feel like they'll get along, but I do feel like Fire plus Frank doesn't mix. So I am worried about them working in tandem.
Okay.
So I don't know. Frank trusts Hazel to watch the stick. I do not think he will be trusting Leo to watch the stick. So I think it'll be okay, but it might be a little bit. Frank's for sure going to be hesitant at first. Like whenever he figures out this dude has fire powers, he's going to be really careful, I would think. So warmth rushes through Frank's body as Thanatos' chains begin to melt, and Frank's life literally begins to flash before his eyes. He recalls the last thing his mother said before leaving for war, quote, "I will always be proud of you, Frank. Someday you'll travel even farther than I. You'll bring our family full circle. Years from now, our descendants will be telling stories about the hero, Frank Zhang, their great, and then pokes him in the belly. And the narrator, Frank, then says, it would be the last time that Frank smiled for months, which is just really sending the impact of that final lasting memory.
Yeah. I went to prepare for this chapter. I went back and reread a lot of Frank's chapters and inadvertently ended up reading about half the book the last day. But his flashback scenes with his mother, with his grandmother, I feel like there's so much there that I relate to, even as
Sure.
Asian American.
Anything in particular?
Well, I think the storytelling aspect, I think the seriousness of his grandmother is something that I see in my own mother and, saw in my own grandmother, and a sense of responsibility that I think when you're coming into a hyphenated sort of identity, like for me being Asian American or Filipino American, for Frank being Canadian Chinese, I think you're trying to figure out how to mesh those two worlds. And I think the scenes with his mother are so beautiful because they meld that identity and harness it in a very soft sort of way that he doesn't necessarily see from his grandmother. I think there is an excerpt in which he talks about he's very surprised at how joyous his mother is and how warm she is when she grew up with his grandmother. I could see that in both sides of my family, and where the joy comes out and where the seriousness comes out and what that tension is like. And I think growing up and being an adult and being able to actually analyze that and really psychoanalyze it to an extent. I just love those. There's so much warmth to his mother, and I think she's a fantastic character.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to meet more of his family and learn more about them from some of these flashbacks and stuff, because you're right, she seems fantastic and she seems like she was a really good mom. And I like that he is now starting to come around on Mars, because Ares is one thing. Mars is seeming pretty great. I've really enjoyed him. So combo of grandma and Frank getting more of an appreciation for grandmother and his mom and Mars. It seems like he's got a good core family situation going on now, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for sharing that perspective. That's great. I'm glad you could lend it, because clearly I don't know. I'm not living the hyphenated life here. So always good to have diverse backgrounds on the show. Frank sees in his flashbacks him watching the Northern Lights from Moose Pass with Hazel sleeping beside him and Percy telling him that he's the leader that they need. He sees Percy and Hazel going into the muskeg with him pleading with the gods to save them as he held onto the bow. And I'm really glad that that found its way into the story, because we never really got to see what Frank was doing during that time, because the chapter was not from his perspective. So for it to come back around a couple of chapters later is really cool. I think it's really cute and sweet that Frank, fully knowing that they are in a place that is out of the realm of the gods, was still praying to all of the gods. It's kind of cute that he was nervous. It's oh, Frank.
Yeah, but it's just what is he doing outside that? It's I panic. I just freeze.
Yeah.
I would not envy being in his position at all.
No. Oh, my goodness. Because he even says when they come back that it took way too long. And I've had a couple situations in my life where there's nervousness around waiting for someone but not being able to contact them. There have been a couple of times where Kelly and I were separated and one of us didn't have a phone, and you're supposed to meet here, and then it's past the meeting time, and should I leave or should I stay? Is she somewhere else, or am I going to leave at 7-Eleven and then she's going to come at 7:13 and I shouldn't have left. Like, I've definitely been in those sort of situations before. So to learn that Frank was just praying to all of the gods, like, guys, come on, please, someone, please.
Yeah.
So cute. So the first chain of Thanatos breaks. Frank then switches over to the next leg as soon as possible to not waste any of his stick. But he does take a risk of taking a peek over his shoulder, and he sees Percy fighting like a literal hurricane because water and ice vapor are surrounding him as he fends off the army. And Frank wonders, since when does Percy have that power? And I'm assuming this is part of the Percy getting more and more of his memories back, because he's utilized this before in the first series. So for Percy to bring back his trademark hurricane fighting is pretty cool. And I love Frank. He was already impressed with Percy, but now Percy's doing cooler and cooler stuff. And he's like, what the hell has gotten into Percy?
Yeah. And I think like the Romans haven't seen a son of Neptune, right? So same thing. It's equally as impressive as it was at Camp Half-Blood, where they hadn't seen anybody with these powers before. So yeah. And then you stick this little sea boy in a glacier and it's completely surrounded by water and his powers are just magnified. So
yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about that as much, but you're right. If he's standing on ice, he's standing on frozen water. So that is partially why he is absolutely wrecking shop on these people. Yeah. Now, Percy is making his way away from Frank, but Frank knows that Percy is actually still defending him because all of the focus is on Percy. So he's leading the enemy legion away from Frank, so he'll be safe. Frank then realizes what Percy is doing when he catches a glimpse of the golden eagle atop a pole. He realizes that Percy's going to go after the Legion's standard. Eventually, Percy does grab the eagle, and then he barks at the ghosts, "You want it back? Come and get it!" And he runs off, and they all chase after him. Frank is amazed, but internally he commends Percy for recognizing that at their core, these ghosts are Roman legionnaires. So they are going to focus on the standard over anything else, because he compares them to the spirits in Asphodel that are kind of like hazy, almost on autopilot, but like the key being of the Roman legionnaires is we care about the standard, and that kind of supersedes the instructions from Gia. So Frank thinks it's very smart of Percy to go after this plan. I think it's very smart as well. Good on Perce.
Yeah, I think it's just like winning at any cost, and also like just not being considerate of like personal safety.
Yeah.
Just running headlong into danger. And that is Percy Jackson's MO at any given time, all of the time, always.
It's very great. Frank knows that Percy can't keep this up forever, so he looks around for Hazel, and he cannot see her, so he gets a little bit worried. But then Thanatos warns Frank not to waste his fire, and Frank curses and realizes that the second chain had already burst, but he was distracted by looking around, so he may have wasted some of his stick. So he moves the flame over to the right hand of Than, and his tinder is about half gone. And his life flashing before his eyes continues. He sees Mars telling him that he's Juno's secret weapon and asking him if he's figured out his family gift. He sees his mom saying that he could be anything. He sees his grandma telling him that his mother was speaking literally when she said that. And then Frank thinks of the bear from the woods and the black bird that left the burning mansion. And the third chain busts. So Frank moves on to the final one. His vision starts to go. He feels pain in his body rising, and then he sees Percy continuing to fight, but the enemy just continues to get back and attack no matter how often they're knocked down. Much like that Chumbawamba song, you can't keep them down. They instantly are reforming. They just keep getting back up again. They're never going to keep him down. But Percy is getting to the point now where he's backed up near the side gate of the camp, and just beyond that is the edge of Hubbard Glacier. So he's skating on thin ice, literally. Not looking great for my guy Percy.
Yeah, I do want to say that I was very delighted by one of the sentences in this section. So when Frank turns around and he goes to see Percy, it says, he saw Percy at the end of the Via Principalis, holding off the army of ghosts. He'd overturned the chariot and destroyed several buildings. And I got to that line and I was like, that sounds about right. There's a recent series of SNL sketches, digital sketches, in which they have, something going on, like a very soap opera-y kind of story happening in the foreground. And in the background, there's some crazy nonsense happening that is just so off-kilter and so wild. And I feel like that is just kind of what's happening here. You have this very intense, intimate moment of Frank giving away his life force to, save this god. And then you, quickly turn around to moments of just, Percy absolutely like causing extreme chaos and carnage all over, just like woo in the background. And then Hazel fighting off a giant, and then you just come back to Frank for a moment. I found a lot of comedy and joy even in just that one little phrase.
Frank's cycling through every emotional moment he's ever felt in his life, and then Percy just going like, yeah, what, yeah, what, yeah. Like he's Sora from Kingdom Hearts or Link from any Zelda game.
Absolutely.
Just slashing and hacking all over the place.
Just to put it into perspective, one of the SNL shorts takes place inside a Waffle House or outside of a Waffle House. So you can imagine the very intense, heartfelt soap opera happening outside of the Waffle House and the chaos happening inside.
I cannot express to anyone that does not live in an area where Waffle House exists that if you ever find yourself in the southern United States when you can get to a Waffle House, you simply must go. The food is perfect. It is reasonably priced. And no matter what Waffle House you go into, something fantastic will happen. I've never had a bad Waffle House experience. They've all been great. There's times where people are yelling at each other and there's chaos like that. There's times where the chefs are blasting the music because it's 12:30 and not a lot of people in there, so who cares? And they're bumping to the music. You can get in and out in like no time at all. I went to a Waffle House in Atlanta and my entire meal from like get in, sit down, eat food, pay and leave was 11 minutes. It's
Perfection.
it's just so good. There have been 2 times that I've gone where I've had to ask the waiter who's in charge of the playlist because the playlist was that good. Like it's just, God, it's so good. You can get the hash browns done however you want. I would recommend scattered, smothered, covered, and crispy. But man, Waffle House, it's great. They have great merch. I have Waffle House basketball shooting sleeves.
Oh, amazing.
I think they're technically marathon runner compression sleeves for your arms, but I have them
potato.
for basketball.
Is Hubbard Glacier the
so
Waffle
good.
House of America?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It might be.
It might be.
God, Waffle House, it's just so good. I can't recommend it enough. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Frank sees that Hazel versus Alcyonius has resulted in the destruction of most of the barracks. So similar to Percy destroying stuff, these two also destroying a bunch of stuff. They are fighting closer towards the main gate. Narrator Frank says, quote, Arion was playing a dangerous game of tag, charging around the giant while Alcyonius swiped at them with his staff, knocking over walls and cleaving massive chasms in the ice. Only Arion's speed kept them alive. So cut back to Frank. The last chain is broken, Frank exclaims and thrusts the firewood into the snow to extinguish the flame. His pain recedes, he calms down, but the tinder is, quote, no more than a stub, smaller than a candy bar. This has shaken my world because the whole time I've read this book, I thought this stick was like a couple inches long at most. I thought that the official full thing was maybe the size of a mini Halloween candy bar.
It says TV remote.
Oh, it does at one point? It says TV remote? Oh, okay.
I think in one of the earlier chapters when his grandmother first gives it to him, I think it says TV remote.
Okay. I think I missed that because that was one of the Boston shows. I think that might have been the second Boston show, and I had to read in between the two shows because we had an early show and a late show, and I try not to read ahead. So we had a couple hour break in between, so I had to just like read the chapters in between really quickly. So I was flying through my notes, so maybe I missed that it was a TV remote. Okay. Still, that's funny because the whole time I thought it was like just a couple inches big. So when he was like, yeah, now it couldn't be any bigger than a candy bar. I was like, hold on. I don't think it was ever bigger than a candy bar.
Their interior pockets must be so big to hold a TV remote.
They must be really big. I mean, yeah, a TV remote. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take all my jackets, which are here in the studio. I'm going to have to take every single one and see, can I fit a TV remote in the, I mean, some of them I can.
Is this like a 2010 TV remote or a 2025 TV remote?
Oh, that's a great point. When were they bigger? Were they bigger in 2010? Or
They were pretty chunky.
They were pretty big.
They were like forearm length, yeah.
Like, did you ever have one of the like Optimum IO ones? Remember when they had that with like the big chunky IO button? This might be just like our area of New Jersey, but it was like that. It was like light up red, but we never had Optimum, so it was a button that didn't do anything, but it was huge, and it would light up all red. So I would push it all the time because as a kid, that just like felt cool and looked cool, but it didn't do anything on our TV because we didn't have premium TV.
Yeah, that's how I felt clicking the internet button on my phone, and then I would panic and I would cancel it.
Oh, that was
When we
always
still had flip
terrifying.
phones.
That was always so terrifying on a old school singular wireless phone if you touch the internet, because the internet was so slow that like you couldn't cancel fast enough, and then it would show up on your mom's bill like, you were on the internet for 13 seconds. That costs $95 because it's the year 2001. Ugh. But yeah, TV remote. Wow. It just shook me to my core. I was so surprised. But now at least I have a half of a TV remote in the brain. I mean, that's like a cell phone, so that's fine. That's normal. But this was a big thing that he was asking Hazel to carry on to. Especially, it's not just a jacket. It's a jacket that fits a 13-year-old. That's small.
That is small.
And those don't always have internal pockets. I have my dad's old ski jacket from the 80s, that big puffy teal one that I wear a lot. And my mom had a matching one, but it was a little big. We wanted to give it to Kelly so that we could have matching jackets. We looked online and we found out that they made that jacket in the 80s in kids sizes. So Kelly's is actually a youth extra large, and it fits her perfectly as a 5'2" woman.
Yep.
And what's funny about that is mine has an internal secret pocket. The kids' one does not have an internal secret pocket. I wonder if that's because it's like, you don't want your kids to be hiding stuff in their jackets. But Kelly is very upset that she doesn't have an internal secret pocket. I don't know if that's like a kid's jacket thing.
It might be the inverse of that. I, as a 5'2" woman who can also fit into large children's clothes, it is a righteous anger that women's clothes do not have better pockets. I buy so many men's jackets.
One of the greatest injustices on earth. Wait, so even women's jackets don't have good pockets?
No.
I know pants, it's a whole thing, and dresses, like if it has pockets, it's the greatest thing on earth.
Okay.
But even women's coats? Come on.
Yeah, I buy so many men's jackets because they have an insane amount of pockets on them, and like internal, external. Some of them I can't zip because of my hips and they're designed that way, which again, righteous fury that I went out and I bought this wonderful leather jacket and they're just like, it's made for men. It won't zip over your hips. And I was like, watch me, and then it doesn't. But I'm entitled to my anger.
Gosh, yeah, the pockets thing, it's truly wild that women's clothes don't have more of it. And it's a joke that I have to consistently remind myself to do, is when someone compliments any item of clothing that I have, usually pants or a jacket or something, I like to, as a joke, go, thanks, it has pockets.
Every time. I say
like,
that every
obviously
time.
it does.
I'm so we recently went to Japan. I tried on a dress or a skirt and I didn't want to let it go because I was like, this thing is well made and it has pockets. I don't care that it doesn't fit. And obviously put it down. But
it is truly baffling.
Yeah.
I'm glad that like thanks it has pockets has become such a thing that I feel like more and more women's clothes, dresses especially, are starting to get pockets. So it should happen. I think even Jania Stewart, who's been on the podcast, I went to her wedding. I think her wedding dress had pockets. So she got to pull thanks it has pockets at the wedding. Oh, powerful.
Did you see the image of Emma Stone at the SNL 50 where her dress had like this insane kind of like waist? Like she looked like a trophy, but the sides of her dress were just pockets and she filled them with popcorn and then went on the red carpet. It was amazing. I'm like, that's the dream.
That's great.
That's the dream, to have a popcorn dress.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Snacks? Come on. Come
on.
But yeah, anyway, Hazel holding on to a TV remote inside of her small 13-year-old jacket pocket, which might not even have internal pockets. Good for her. That's a sign of love, Frank. That's how you know she likes you. So Thanatos raises his arms and states, free with delight. Frank goes, great, then do something, which I love it. I love Frank's energy here. But I was a little bit worried. He should be specific, because you don't want that something to be kill me and my friend Hazel now that you're back. So I feel like he should have taken a similar approach like he does with Gray. Take that with Thanatos, where you got to give very clear instructions. Don't just say do something, because we don't want him to just do anything. Thanatos smiles and says that what he will do is watch, promising that those who die in this battle will stay dead. Frank puts the stick into his coat and mutters, thanks, very helpful. And Thanatos then replies, you're most welcome, in an agreeable tone, which is fantastic. Frank yells to Percy that the enemies can die now. Percy nods, but Frank can see that Percy is absolutely gassed. The hurricane around Percy is slowing. Percy's attacks are slowing. The enemy is pushing Percy closer and closer to the edge of the glacier. Frank wields his bow, trying to help out, but then he drops it because he recognizes that shooting simple arrows from a mortal hunting store in town won't do the trick. So he decides that he's going to use the family gift. We're finally here. Frank using the gift. There's been some pump fakes in previous chapters, but now it's finally happening.
Yay. I know that you already anticipated what it could be. What were some of your other hypotheses about what the gift could have been?
Not to toot my own horn, but my first guess was he can change into anything. Just because his mom said you can be anything, and she was talking to a bear. So it really, like, the stuff that 4 chapters later, Grandma kind of lays heavy-handedly into, when his mom first did it, I was like, yeah. But also, at the time, I was 32 years old reading a book for teens. So not too hard to put it together. But yeah, my first guess was, oh, he can shapeshift.
Yeah. Animorphs. We're coming full circle from when we were like 7.
Oh, yeah. Did you read those? I never read those.
I don't think I did, but I distinctly remember them being in the library and really loving the lenticular covers.
The covers are cool. Also terrifying and nightmare fuelish, but cool. But no, I never read them. I was too busy reading Captain Underpants and other works of fine literature at the Scholastic Book Fair. Did you have a different guess of what his gift was when you first read it, or did you also predict the gift?
I genuinely can't remember because at this point, it's now been over 2 years since I read these. Piper's turning 2 in June, which is scary.
My goodness.
And I think I didn't have her at the time that we were reading these books.
Got it. Yes, because her name was the inspiration, so.
Yeah, so.
Or the books were the inspiration of her name.
Yes, yeah. If you didn't know, I have a dog named Piper, not named after Piper in Heroes of Olympus, but
drop
also,
the Instagram handle, drop the IG.
I haven't updated it in a while, but it's Piper Cuts.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
So he's going to use the family gift. He feels a rush of confidence in his ability to channel the gift after watching the stick burn and smelling his own life force turn into smoke. He thinks of Thanatos asking him if it's fair that his life burns so short and bright. Frank says to himself, no such thing as fair. If I'm going to burn, it might as well be bright.
Why does he sound like that?
Because Frank, all the time, when he does
Is that what a 15-year-old Canadian sounds like?
Yeah, okay. Canada's going to turn off the podcast. No such thing as fair. If I'm going to burn, I might as well be bright. I know that's like not actually Canada. It's like Montana or something. Or not even Montana. It's just characters from cartoons I've seen. Yeah, I don't know. It's just when Frank talks to himself to hype himself up, it's such an 80s action movie guy that I always have to be like, yeah.
I don't disagree, and I think the Mars persona plays into that a little bit. Like, Mars, I kind of imagine as like a Terminator sort of dude. Yeah, so I don't disagree with it. It just really threw me off.
It's like, it's not actually how Frank talks. It's this other, I gotta hype myself up persona. It's like when Norman Osborn in the first Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movie looks in the mirror, and it's the more evil Willem Dafoe where he's like, nah! Like even just like ramped up. That's what Frank has. Frank, to get himself jazzed up, has to become an 80s action movie star. He has to be this grizzled veteran, you know, just...
Meanwhile, IRL, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Oh, gosh. So Frank then moves towards Percy, but then immediately hears a scream from Hazel. Alcyonius has hit Arion/Hazel and knocks them into the ramparts. I'm wondering if those ramparts are crenellated. And Frank yells out to Hazel and is now conflicted that he cannot be at 2 places at once. He really wishes that he could summon Gray again. Percy tells Frank to save her. He's confident that he can take on these dudes. He says, I've got these guys. Frank is not so sure. Narrator Frank says Percy didn't have them. Frank knew that. The son of Poseidon was about to be overwhelmed, but Frank ran to Hazel's aid. So Frank, even recognizing that Percy's in trouble, still showing that preferential treatment for Hazel. Okay. Love conquers all. I get it. But also, I feel like if you are even the love aspect out of it, if you have to save one of the two, I feel like seasoned fighter Percy Jackson, who has a hurricane around him against a bunch of grunts, is probably the safer of the two than Hazel and a horse fighting the giant. I think Frank made the right call.
Yeah, I agree. I think Percy can hold his own, and I think, as you said, Frank has assessed that. I also think Hazel, she's been knocked off her horse, right? So she's like, on her back, the horse in front of her, a giant, and she is the more defenseless, I think, of the two.
Yeah, she's half buried underneath a pile of snow bricks. Arion's above her trying to protect her. Alcyonius laughs. "Hello, little pony, you want to play?" And then raises his staff. Frank is too far to help, so he thinks, "Be anything," and imagines his feet leaving the ground as he rushes forward. Narrator Frank then describes the following, quote, "He remembered the bald eagles they'd seen on the train ride. His body became smaller and lighter. His arms stretched into wings, and his sight became 1,000 times sharper. He soared upward, then dove at the giant with his talons extended, his razor-sharp claws raking across the giant's eyes. I was hyped as hell, and also, Jason is going to be so jealous, because true American Jason Grace would want nothing more than to be able to turn into an eagle."
And the Canadian is there.
Of course, the damn Canadian turns into the eagle. Oh, blasphemy. He should have turned into a moose.
We love you, Canada, please.
I love it. I love it. And look, you want to be pro-Canada, just wait till we get to the end of the next chapter, because there is some divine Canadian referencing is about to happen.
Yes.
I was really stoked. I didn't even care that I was wrong about my guess. So cool. Glad the gift is working. Mm-hmm. Alcyonius cries out and stumbles backwards. Frank returns to his normal form, as the book says it, when he reaches Hazel. She's, of course, obviously confused. Alcyonius calls Frank a fool because he is immortal in his homeland, and thanks to Hazel, Alaska is that homeland. He yells that they cannot kill him here. And Frank goes, "We'll see," and tells Hazel to get back on top her horse. Literally. Alcyonius charges. Frank charges at him as well. And then narrator Frank describes the following. Quote, "He remembered the bear he'd met face to face when he was a child. And then I fist bumped. I was like, okay. Close."
I did it.
As he ran, his body became heavier, thicker, rippling with muscles. He crashed into the giant as a full-grown grizzly, 1,000 pounds of pure force. He was still small compared to Alcyonius, but he slammed into the giant with such momentum, Alcyonius toppled into an icy watchtower that collapsed on top of him. Pretty cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And given how much the bear flashback got play in the book, it didn't feel like a surprise that this would come up at some point. Yeah. So again, not to pat myself on the back too much, because Frank thought about this memory at least 5 times. Him turning into a bear was pretty obvious to me.
Yeah. It's so picturesque, this whole sequence. Like, I can just see it in my head as a movie, and like you kind of see a very full wide-angle shot, this grizzly bear and the giant like kind of coming toward each other on like a clean glacier, and like you have like the full backdrop of sky in the background, and they just like, I've been watching a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean since we got back from Tokyo. So this is super cinematic in my head, and you just see like this poof, and I could just imagine it being so good. And I love the way that even with such efficient text, Rick does such a lovely job in making us feel like we're part of this action. And I love that.
Yeah, it's great. It's really picturesque. I can see it just like you're describing. And I can also now see why more and more people think that if they do adapt these books, it should be something animated. I get it if one of your main characters can shapeshift all the time. But I also do think it's cool to finally have a demigod that can do this, because you hear in mythological stories all the time of Zeus turning into different animals and having sex with people.
Or a shower of gold.
Yeah. So there's all these different times where the Greek gods turn into different animals. It's cool to finally have a demigod turn into different animals. It's good stuff. Frank then just goes absolutely wild on the giant's head as this bear, quote, "A swipe of his claw was like a heavyweight fighter swinging a chainsaw," which is a great way to describe it. He's doing so much damage that he is beginning to dent Alcyonius's metal head. Alcyonius is looking rough. Frank turns back into a human. He grabs a rope from his pack, makes a noose, ties it to the giant's foot, tosses the other end of the rope to Hazel, and says that he has an idea. And I immediately was like, oh, we're going to drag him out of Alaska. Okay. Alcyonius tries to mutter that he's going to kill them. Frank slams a shield into his nose. Then he asks Hazel how far Arion can pull Alcyonius. Hazel's still in awe of Frank's gift. She goes, You were a bird, then a bear. And Frank says he'll explain later, but right now they must drag Alcyonius as far inland as possible. Hazel asks, what about Percy? Frank is kicking himself for forgetting about him. And I'm thinking, okay, I know you got caught up in the moment, but could you not remember one of the 2 people that you're here with? Come on, my guy. Come on, man.
He's got a lot going on internally right now. Give him a break.
I get it. Yeah, he's literally turning into animals. There's other stuff on the brain.
I don't know. Well, I guess To what extent does like his brain and his thoughts like he talked about his
honey, I need honey.
Obviously he's still there with all his faculties, but he's like, my eyesight got so much sharper.
Yeah.
Very singularly focused, I would imagine.
Yeah, if he ever turns into a dog, you can just smell everything.
Ooh, overwhelming.
I must pee on tree trunks. Frank sees Percy with his back to the cliff's edge. And at this point, now I'm getting more and more worried that Percy is the son of Poseidon who drowns and that this will be the drowning. There's no more hurricane around Percy. He's got the eagle in one hand. He's got Riptide in the other. And I'm at this point going, oh, the cover of the book. I've seen that. Yeah. So the army pushes forward. Frank yells, Percy. Percy yells something. Frank can't exactly make out what it is, but it seems like go. And right after this, Percy slams his sword into the ground by his feet, and it causes the entire glacier to rumble. Narrator Frank then says, quote, behind Percy, a wave surged up from the bay, a wall of gray water even taller than the glacier. Water shot from the chasms and crevices in the ice. As the wave hit, the back half of the camp crumbled. The entire edge of the glacier peeled away, cascading into the void, carrying buildings, ghosts, and Percy Jackson over the edge. I just wrote in my notes in all caps, Percy, please be okay. But that is the end of the chapter, which I have retitled, I'm like a bird, I'm also like a bear.
Okay, if I was to make it like a I'm kind of thing, I feel like it would be something like I'm melting away my life force.
Yeah, that's good. That would be a Percy one for sure.
Yeah, but I also, there's something about the winterscape and uncuffing season that I just want to call it uncuffing season.
Great. Beautiful. I love it. So at this point, we're going to take our break for the Son of Fortune. We're running out of the Sons of Fortune. We're not two more episodes. We're done with this book. Wild. But we'll talk about cool updates and stuff with new merch, the stuff we're doing on Patreon, live shows, live streams, replays of streams, all that good stuff. And then we'll come back to discuss chapter 47. Hello and welcome to the Son of Fortune, not Shubio edition, but front closet in our apartment edition. Because of busyness with tour and the Montreal show, which was fantastic. Shout out to everyone who came through. I had an absolute blast. I was unable to record the mid-roll break before the baby went to sleep tonight, and I didn't get my podcasting audio equipment out of the Shubio, which is in the closet where the baby's room is. So we're using my laptop's built-in microphone in our front closet. I'm surrounded by coats and a stroller and all that kind of stuff, but we've got updates for the podcast, so let's get into it. We've got new live shows. That's what I want to start with. But even before we get into the new live shows, we do have a show coming up this coming Friday. If you're listening to it, the week it releases, we're going to be in Buffalo, New York. We'll be joined by Liam Crowley, and we're actually going to be covering part of the Demigod Diaries, the short story companion book that released between books 2 and 3 of Heroes of Olympus. We're going to be covering the Staff of Hermes story. I'm excited about it. We've done mostly studio recordings for the Demigod Diaries episodes, which will be coming out between our Son of Neptune and Mark of Athena episodes. But this one will be live. Give it a little bit of variety. And Liam's going to be a fantastic guest. I'm super stoked about it. And we've got other shows on the horizon. I'm coming to Zurich, Switzerland at long last. Coming to Switzerland, Zurich, which really should have been on the roster for the Torup tour we did in 2023, but logistically it just didn't make as much sense. Zurich, we're coming to you. We've got a live show at noon on Sunday, May 25th, and it's going to be an absolute blast. We've got like 222 seats, which I feel like should be enough, but there's a chance it sells out depending on how many people from Germany take the train to Switzerland. I know my listenership in Germany is very strong, and if you want to take the train with the show being at noon, catch a morning train, see the show, take a train back, and you're in bed at a reasonable hour. But we're also going to be in Zurich the day before for a Potterless show at 6 p.m. That one only has 100 seats, so that one feels like it's 100% going to sell out, so act quickly. You can get tickets to these shows at thenewsolympian.com/live, but there's also new shows in America that we just announced. 4 new shows on the docket. August 14th, we'll be in St. Louis, Missouri for a TNO show. August 18th, we'll be in Kansas City, Missouri for a TNO and Potterless show. September 13th, we'll be in Providence, Rhode Island for a TNO and Potterless show. And September 28th, we'll be in Pittsburgh for a TNO show. Again, get tickets at thenewsolympian.com/live. I also have mentioned trying to add some shows in June in Salt Lake City and in Sacramento. Trying to make it happen. We had to get the family trip planned first and then tour after. Family trip is planned. Now I can try to get stuff. I'm going to do my best, but it is short notice. nervous, so no promises, and I got to book it myself because my tour guy was unable to find stuff. So I'm really trying, but we'll see how it all goes down. Now, as far as other podcast stuff and things that get mentioned in this episode I talk about the live stream of the opening chapters we did for the Mark of Athena, and if you didn't watch the stream, you didn't get the replay, I will eventually be putting it on the Patreon shop. My plan is to have it available for purchase once we finish our coverage of the Son of Neptune, so that once we finish, if you don't want to wait for my thoughts on the first few chapters, you'll be able to get that. So that's the plan of when that one will be available for purchase. And then anyone who got a ticket to the stream, I'll send a link where you can get the video version downloaded for free as a thank you for getting a stream ticket. And speaking of the Patreon shop, that's where that new podcast that I made with Eric Hamilton Schneider, The Last and the Curious, about my first viewing and his umpteenth viewings of all of the Fast and Furious movies. And we did an episode per movie, super fun, and you can get it all ad-free right away, every single episode of this limited series podcast for just $5 on the TNO Patreon shop. That's at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon, or you can go to thelastandthecurio.us and it'll directly link you to the product page for that on the TNO Patreon shop. Also in this episode, there are 2 puns that I missed. They will both come after the break. I say that Alcyonius groans and I say that Alcyonius moans, and I failed to call him Alcygronius and Alcimonius, and I'm really sorry. I sincerely apologize, and I promise to do better going forward. Now, I've mentioned the Patreon. I'm going to give a shout out to the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. Shout out to our newest Mega God tier patron, Cara Barkman. Shout out to our newest God tier patron, Darth Placius the Wise. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Fight Bee, Because, Isaiah Torres, and Aaron Williams. Also a name correction for Michaela Monica, and shout out to Haven and Eleanor Davis, who both upgraded their pledges. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hermes bless you that if you are ever traveling to another country whose main language is not one that you are familiar with, you're still able to put together the pieces when you're reading signs or trying to make your way through basic conversations getting around town. My survival French kicked in when I was in Montreal. I was very happy. Now, if you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you're looking for some new content to consume, you are in luck, because I make a whole bunch of content, and I think you would like the content that I make, especially if you like this podcast. One that is a very timely listen, that it's a great time to get on board, is Horse. The NBA playoffs are going on right now, and Horse is a comedy basketball podcast that I co-host and co-create with my buddy Adam Amawala, who's a professional stand-up comedian, and we present the show in a way where if you don't know what's going on with basketball, we catch you up to speed. And whether you want to know more about the WNBA or the NBA, Horse is perfect for you. And our most recent 2 episodes are very much centered on the drama that is currently going on with the WNBA and the NBA. We did a whole drama draft with a WNBA reporter and expert, Jordan Liggins, and then the episode that drops tomorrow, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, is a recap catching you up to speed on all of the drama of the current NBA playoffs. So you can listen to Horse wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Horse or by going to our website, horsehoops.com. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon where you get access to ad-free episodes, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Ecuador, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Spanish. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The News Olympian. And we're back, and we're here for chapter 47. It's called Frank. It opens with, quote, Frank was so stunned that Hazel had to yell his name a dozen times before he realized Alcyonius was getting up again. So Frank does his now trademark move of smashing Alcyonius in the nose with a shield to get him back to where he is snoring. The glacier continues to crumble. The edge is now creeping closer and closer to them. Thanatos approaches. He's still very content. He is delighted because he can tell that some of these souls are drowning and not returning. Frank asks about Percy, and Thanatos says that it is too early to tell. He says that on the flip side, quote, this one, and then looks at Alcyonius with disgust, cannot die here. He asks Frank if he knows what to do, and Frank says he thinks so, and then Thanatos says, then our business is complete. So Frank and Hazel look at each other nervously, and I'm just thinking at this point, don't tell him. It's like when the teacher forgets to take up the homework, just don't say anything, let him leave, don't mention it at all. But of course, Hazel begins to ask if he's really not going to take her life, and Thanatos then makes an all-black iPad emerge from the air. Ooh, tech drop. The iPad was very new when this book came out. Yeah, this is a 2011 book. When did the iPad first come out?
That's a great question.
2010. So yeah, this is new. And I believe it was early enough that there wasn't a black iPad. Like it was just the classic, matte gray backing. So yeah. Uncle Rick saying, ooh, it's an all black iPad is cool and fun as opposed to just one of the options you can get.
Yeah, that's just a perk of being like a henchman of the underworld, just like full tech access.
I guess you get all the tech stuff, but This one I feel like ages better. It's not like in The Lost Hero where Jane, the assistant, had the PDA, the Palm Pilot. Like those are extinct
like a
now.
BlackBerry,
iPads, iPads are holding out. Well, yeah, there's Blackberries and PDAs are both referenced in The Lost Hero, and those did not age well at all. The iPad has held on. Good job, Uncle Rick. Frank thinks, don't let there be an app for reaping souls, which is fun. Thanatos explains he doesn't have Hazel's name on the list that Pluto provided for him, meaning that either Pluto thinks that her life is not yet finished, or it could just be an oversight. He offers to call and ask. Hazel stops him, and then Thanatos, which I cannot tell if he's joking or not here, but the book describes it as helpfully asking if she's sure, because he has conferencing enabled, and he has Pluto's Skype address here somewhere. Again, one that has not aged well, but that's not Uncle Rick's fault. That is Skype's fault. How did you drop the ball?
Yep.
You were a verb. You were the verb for video calling someone, and then COVID lockdown hit and you didn't capitalize. How did you let Zoom beat you? He says on the Zoom call with Alyssa. They blew it.
Meanwhile, RIP Google Hangouts.
Nah. RIP rest in piss. I never was a fan. They were always bad. Zoom, like, I see why Zoom won. From a perspective of recording and stuff, like, they're the best. But Skype absolutely fumbled it so hard. But for the Thanatos thing, did you think he's joking, or is he being oblivious? Or he's like, oh no, I can help. Or is he kind of toying with them, playing up the, are you sure? I've got conference calls enabled.
Oh no, I imagined it was sincere.
Okay.
I took it he's like a straight man. Yeah, for sure.
He's out of touch enough where I think it's believable.
Yeah.
He seems weird enough to not actually think that this is him messing with him. Like Alcyonius feels like let me play with my food kind of guy.
Yeah.
But Thanatos, I think, is just a weirdo. So I don't think he would
accept
get it.
that.
Hazel says no thank you. Alcyonius groans. Frank hits him in the head. Thanatos tells Frank that it's not his time yet either. He warns them both that this is not him doing them a favor. He pledges to meet them again under worse circumstances. Okay, fine. We'll cross that bridge later. We got other stuff to deal with, my guy. The glacier edge is now just 20 feet away. Frank asks one last question. Where are the doors of death, and how do we close them? And I love Thanatos' reply, quote, yes, the doors of me. Closing them would be good.
Every time he says the doors of me, it just kind of, it gets me.
It's so funny. Closing them would be good, but I fear it is beyond my power. How would you do it? I haven't the faintest idea. I can't tell you exactly where they are. The location isn't, well, it's not entirely a physical place. They must be located through questing, which feels like, okay, yeah, this is going to be the point of one of the books. I get it. I can tell you to start your search in Rome, the original Rome. You will need a special guide. Only one sort of demigod can read the signs that will ultimately lead you to the doors of me. So my initial guess here is that feels like Nico D'Angelo is the special demigod, which to me makes me feel like Nico is not one of the seven. I had this big thing where I'm wondering who is the seventh, because we've got our 3 from The Lost Hero, we've got our 3 from this book, and we need one more. And I was basically worried about Annabeth or Nico being that final slot. It feels like now I would say Annabeth is for sure going to be number 7, especially because in previous chapters, Percy, when talking with Ella, had that other half-burned prophecy that mentioned something about the daughter of Athena. So it feels like in the next book, we're going to be getting that. My guess, especially because the doors of death now feel like a big Gia-related thing, I feel like book 3 might not be the doors of death. At this point, I do know it's called Mark of Athena. I don't think it's going to be the Doors of Death. I feel like that would be book 4. So I feel like book 3, I had predicted that they were going to go to Greece because it was this whole, you got to go to the root. But now with the Rome thing, it's like, oh, are they going to have to go to Greece and then to Rome? Is that going to be in the same book? Is that going to be in different books? So I could see a world where book 3 is go to Greece and do some stuff, and then book 4 is go to Rome and do this. Or it could be we split up and we've got 3 people doing one quest with Greece and then more people doing Rome Doors of Death stuff. And Annabeth, at least from that half-burned prophecy, it's seeming like she's going to be alone at least for a little bit, because I think it said something about walking alone, blah, blah, blah. So lots of stuff. Obviously, your trapdoor would fly open if you say anything at this point. But
yeah,
particularly these sort of lines had me really starting to think about what lies ahead.
I'm just sitting here with like the best poker face I can. But audience, I have so many feelings right now, and I am having so many flashbacks to reading books 3, 4, and 5. And I hope you are too.
I love it. Yeah, that is the alpha and the omega, that I've given you 2 of the best chapters in the entire book, but also 2 of the hardest chapters to be a guest for. So you get the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm really excited for you to see all that come to fruition.
I'm really stoked about it. I'm very hyped for the final books. I mean, at the time of recording this is April 4th, but the episode's going to come out way later. I think definitely by the time this episode comes out, we've already begun book 3. Like, we did the live stream of me doing the first 2 chapters of Mark of Athena. But yeah, it's this, like, I'm super stoked because I'm about to go on tour and finally get into book 3, which is cool. But yeah, oh man. Oh, there's a lot, but we still got to finish this book. So let's finish this chapter so we can keep going. The cracks are now underneath their feet, and Arion is like, guys, come on, yo, what's up? Hazel asks if Nico is still alive, and Thanatos gives her a look that seems like it could be pity, but Frank, as the narrator, doesn't think that Thanatos is the type to feel pity. Thanatos says, quote, "You will find the answer in Rome, and now I must fly south to your camp Jupiter. I have a feeling there will be many souls to reap very soon. Farewell, demigods, until we meet again." So, yeah, this kind of feels like these 3 folks, if they do stay together as a trio in a book, the next time they do something, they're going to be doing Rome. I don't know if we need all 6 people in Greece. I could see 3 in Greece, 3 in Rome, potentially at the same time. Maybe books 3 and 4 happen simultaneously, and it's like what they were doing. There's so many possibilities.
Yeah.
Thanatos then vanishes, and the cracks widen even more. Frank tells Hazel that they have to take Alcyonius 10 miles due north. And I wrote him a note, is that Canada or something? And then what's fantastic is Frank gets atop Alcyonius's chest and instructs Arion to take off. So he's doing the wildest wakeboarding ever. Narrator Frank says, quote, "Arion rode the glacier like a highway." And of course, when he said that, all I could think of is in the background of "Love is a highway" during this whole thing.
Oh no, that is definitely era appropriate.
Oh yeah. Zipping across the ice, leaping crevices, and skidding down slopes that would have made a snowboarder's eyes light up. Thankfully, this bumpy ride means that Frank doesn't have to keep hitting Alcyonius in the head to keep him knocked out. Frank takes a beat to be impressed with himself for figuring out the gift, and he still feels the energy coursing through his veins, like he's in a state in between being a liquid and a solid. Frank is also incredibly excited that he and Hazel didn't have to give up their lives after freeing Thanatos. That's a big win. He is unhyped, though, about Percy's fate, not feeling great about it, especially because of that prophecy line. Yeah, that makes 2 of us, my guy. Frank vows to ensure that Percy is not lost, but first they must deal with their giant problem. Frank visualizes the map that he studied on the train out of Anchorage, and he has a vague sense of where they're going, and they'll have to do it based on feelings because there's not going to be any physical markers where they're going. So this feels very much like we are crossing a border, but I don't think there's going to be border patrol in rural middle of nowhere, Alaska. Narrator Frank then says, quote, "Finally, Arion zoomed between 2 mountains into a valley of ice and rocks, like a massive bowl of frozen milk with bits of Cocoa Puffs." I love a cereal reference. Give me any cereal reference. It's fantastic. What a beautiful description by Uncle Rick. Alcyonius' skin turns pale, and Frank feels a vibration in his own body, like they've crossed into friendly territory, home territory. Frank shouts that they're here. Arion veers to one side. Hazel cuts the top. Alcyonius goes skidding. Frank jumps off, and then Alcyonius slams into a boulder. I was wondering if the home feeling, is it because he's back in the world of the gods, or is it because he's in Canada?
I assumed because he was in Canada.
Okay.
I didn't quite know, and I was delighted by both answers, and I think I'm delighted even more by non-answer there.
I need to know if this happens anytime Frank goes back into Canada. Like, does he hop off the plane at YYZ and he's just like, "Oh, wow, I'm back. Ooh, Tim Hortons." Like, is he so stoked?
I feel that way at Newark Airport, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't know if that's a nice thing to admit.
I don't know. Newark is tough. It's just tough.
Well, here's the thing, because I always fly in and out of the United terminal.
Okay.
So it's
nicer.
dedicated to United. It's really nice. One of my favorite memories was coming back home from a trip. I never check a bag. And so I went straight off the plane, nothing to declare at customs, walked straight through, no bags to check. And I think I deplaned and was waiting for a car within 8 minutes of landing.
Yeah.
And I remember crossing through, And the guards at the customs gate were just straight up like, what did I say to them? I was just like, there was no lines. And they were just like, welcome home. And it was the nicest feeling.
That's really good.
That's my tuning fork.
Yeah. And I get you, like you're in a part like now, especially where I'm at in New York, it is like a hassle to get to Newark. So I have reached the stage of my life where I have just committed to, instead of searching all NYC airports, I'm closest to LaGuardia. I just search for LaGuardia. I do the LGA only. That's like, I'm a grown man. I'm a father. We're grown up enough where we are going to the most convenient airport, and then we will fly out of JFK if it's a flight that doesn't go out of LaGuardia. Newark is like an emergency only airport now.
I'm definitely in like an inter-airline relationship because my partner flies Delta, which is, I think...
which is big LaGuardia. Yeah.
No, which is JFK, I think.
They're both.
Yeah. Like I've flown out of JFK and LaGuardia more times in the last 2 years than I ever have.
Yeah, I like hit Delta status without trying, just because we're closest to LaGuardia and so many of the best flights were Delta that I hit it. And then I got to use the, we had a kid, let me have a silver status for a little bit longer thing. And now I'm in this like desperate thing of, will I actually be able to get it again? And we're doing an international trip soon and the best flight is Delta. And I'm like, oh man, it's in play. Keep that status, which now is important because I was always the don't check bag life. And then we had a child. And you have to join the checked bag life because you're already checking the stroller for free. You're already checking the car seat for free, which is awesome. I love that airlines do that. And I rue the day where they eventually get rid of that.
Yeah.
But when you're already checking stuff, then you're like, okay, you might as well check a bag as well. And so then if I'm flying the one where I get free, then it's like, so if I could keep that status.
So I do know,
nice.
I don't know if this would be of any interest to you. This is all a sidebar that could probably take up podcast, but
we're leaving it in. Tangent Town. I'm the mayor.
I do know that there are services that specifically rent out baby items for within different countries for travel.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So I know that you can go to, I think, like Paris and like rent out baby strollers and cribs and stuff like that, which seems amazing.
Yeah. Well, you definitely plan to utilize some of that for international travel. But when we're just doing like domestic flights to going home and stuff, especially if we want to have the car seat in like our parents' car, if we're going to Texas for the holidays or something, like, And then don't tell the airlines. I definitely don't do this. You can put things inside the bags that are the free checks, like the car seat's in there, but also all of her clothes are in there too. But don't tell the airlines. Allegedly. This is not true. This is satire. I don't actually do this.
I know that if and when me and my siblings have kids, my parents will absolutely have one of everything at their house.
There's certain things when you're not the oldest. So I'm not the oldest. I'm the youngest. Kelly's the middle child. There's certain things where like you definitely get better treatment as the oldest child just as a child. And then like if it's oldest child that has kid, so this is not even old child, but just like first grandkids, like definitely get some preferential treatment. But then on the flip side, you do get like a huge benefit of like you get a lot of hand-me-downs, which is cool. And then you get usually the parents will have had all of the stuff by now. So like, we don't have to have a high chair or, sometimes you got to bring things, but like that's nice. On the flip side, there's always going to be more framed photos of the first grandkid because once you frame the photo, you can't ever get rid of it. So now you got to get a new frame or we got to try to get a picture of both of them. Like I'm recognizing that, our daughter's never going to have more 50% of the framed photo share in the Schubert household, but
just tape them quietly.
Bring our own 8x10s and then just be like, take it out and put it in. Be like, now it's all the little one. Get out of here, Aurora. We wouldn't do that, Barb and Joel, who are listening to this podcast. Don't worry, we love you.
I think you just need like little stickers of your child's face and you just put them around the house. Like Easter eggs. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. All right, anyway, so Percy Jackson. So I gotta see my notes. Alcionius jumps. I was like, who jumps to their feet and gets their bearings? Alcionius jumps to his feet and gets his bearings. His nose is bent, but his wounds are healed. He looks for his staff. Obviously, they did not bring that along. He then pummels the boulder that he slid into out of anger. He says, you dare take me for a sleigh ride? And he can tell that Thanatos is free, but he thinks that it's of no matter because Gia still controls the doors of death. He asks Frank why he brought him here, and Frank responds, to kill you. Next question. Oh, so good. So good. Well done, Frank. Alcyonius admits that he's never met a child of Mars who can wild shape, but he warns Frank that that doesn't mean that Frank can defeat him. He asks if he thinks that his, quote, stupid soldier of a father gave him enough strength to face him one-on-one. And then Hazel goes, how about 2-on-1? And then I go, how about 2-on-1 basketball? Let's settle this the old-fashioned way. Alcyonius snarls and charges at Hazel. Arion dodges. Hazel slashes at the back of his calf. He begins to spew oil from the wound, and he bellows out that they cannot kill him. Whether or not there is a free Thanatos, they're not going to be able to do it. Hazel then makes a grabbing gesture with her hand, and an invisible force yanks Alcyonius' jewel-encrusted hair backwards, which is super cool. Basically, mage hand, sick stuff. Super tight.
They have such banging powers in this series. Obviously, they had good ones in the previous series, but like, I think Rick gets significantly more creative with how their powers manifest, and I think 100%. That's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, in the first series, we have, Michael Yu's good at arrows, and in this, we have invisible force yanking jewel-encrusted hair.
That's better than a taxi cab whistle.
It's a little bit better than big fists from Tyson. It's just new, more complex things. It's very fun. Hazel then rushes in to slash Alcyonius' other leg. He screams that they cannot defeat him in his homeland. But then I wrote him as, Frank, hit him with the facts. And then Frank, the book says, quote, actually, Frank said, he hit him with a well, actually. He hit him with a well, actually. Actually, I have some bad news about that. See, I got more from my dad than strength. Alcyonius asks what, and Frank replies, tactics. He says that that's his gift from Mars, and he explains that a battle can be won before it's even fought with proper planning. Quote, we crossed the border a few hundred yards back. You're not in Alaska anymore. Can't you feel it, Al? Calling him Al. Chef's kiss. Mwah. So fantastic. Can't you feel it, Al? You want to get to Alaska? You have to go through me. Frank. My only regret is that Percy is not here to see how good the trash talk is. I hope Hazel recounts this to Percy, because Percy's going to cry just big, wet tears of joy with the beautiful trash talk that Frank is throwing at Alcyonius here. It's delicious.
It's very good. Like, Frank has gained so much confidence since we first met him.
Yes.
I'm excited to talk about that a little more, but this is just like the cherry on top.
It's just so good. Now it dawns on Alcyonius what is happening, and he looks at his leg wounds in disbelief. He charges at Frank, trying to return to Alaska. Frank has a sliver of doubt about his plan, because if he's unable to get the family gift to work again, you could spread avocado on him, because he's toast. He thinks of his grandmother's instructions, though. 1, it helps if you know the creature, and 2, it helps if you're in a life or death scenario. And Frank thinks, check, double check. Alcyonius gets 10 yards away. Hazel goes, Frank? And Frank replies, I got this. Narrator Frank then says, quote, just before Alcyonius smashed into him, Frank changed. He'd always felt too big and clumsy. And at first when this was happening, I was thinking, he's going to turn into the ox that his grandma always calls him. But we see. Now he used that feeling. His body swelled to massive size. His skin thickened. His arms changed to stout front legs. His mouth grew tusks, and his nose elongated. He became the animal he knew best, the one he'd cared for, fed, bathed, and even given indigestion to at Camp Jupiter. Alcyonius slammed into a full-grown 10-ton elephant. What a great reveal. What a great way to say it. We get the Hannibal stuff come in full circle.
Yeah.
Just lovely. Just wonderful.
And it's a great rule of thirds, I think, because like the other two were more related to memories that he's had, whereas this feels like it's an external expression of like his internal feelings. So I do feel like this being that third animal is very poetic for Frank.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Alcyonius bounces off. He screams in anger. He tries to slam into Frank again, but just no dice. He does not have the mass to hold up to him. Elephant Frank headbutts him so hard that he is now spread eagle on the ground. Alcyonius continues to moan that he cannot be killed by them. Frank returns to human form and approaches the now completely falling apart giant. Like, he is just looking really rough. Hazel hops off Arion and asks, "May I?" with her sword at the ready. Oh, great vibes here. Frank nods and then stares into Alcyonius's eyes. Quote, "Here's a tip, Alcyonius. Next time you choose the biggest state for your home, don't set up base in the part that's only 10 miles wide. Welcome to Canada, idiot." Oh, ooh. Oh, Frank Zhang, a man after my own heart. Welcome to Canada, idiot. Oh, delectable. God, it's so good. Man.
I really enjoyed that.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Gosh. Ugh, I was so happy. Hazel slices open Alcyonius's neck, and then he dissolves, quote, into a pile of very expensive rocks. The two stand there for a while, just watching his remains melt into the ice. Finally, Hazel asks, "An elephant?" And Frank sheepishly responds that it seemed like a good idea. It was a fantastic idea. It worked so perfectly. Why are you embarrassed about this, Frank? Get that confidence back. It was a perfect plan. Frank can't read her expression. He's worried that he did something weird that would make her no longer like him, but then she kisses him, a real kiss on the lips. Quote, much better than the kind of kiss she'd given Percy on the airplane. Fantastic. Love that he brought that back. Quote, "You are amazing and you make a very handsome elephant," she says. And Frank is incredibly flustered, but then he hears a voice say, "You haven't won." And he looks up and he sees shadows against the nearest mountain forming into Gia's sleeping face. And she says, quote, "You'll never reach home in time. Even now, Thanatos is attending the death of Camp Jupiter, the final destruction of your Roman friends." The mountain rumbles as if the entire earth is laughing. The shadows dissolve, and the narrator Frank ends the chapter with, quote, "Hazel and Frank looked at each other. Neither said a word. They climbed onto Arion and sped back toward Glacier Bay." Oh, a powerful chapter chapter filled with so much. There's fighting, there's trash talk, there's romance. It has it all. Oh, what a chapter.
Yeah, I love these ones. I was really happy when you reached out to me about doing the chapter, and I actually went through and figured out which ones they were. I just love Frank chapters.
They're fun.
Yeah, and I think looking, without saying anything obviously about what's to come,
Sure.
but looking ahead to some of the future books, I think a lot of my favorite character moments across the series are big Frank moments. And I think that these two chapters are that for this book. And when I think about all the things that exemplify Frank, as a child of Mars, he starts off the series so uncertain about who he is, insecure, very awkward. And I think even at the end of this first book with him, he is just kind of on the edge of realizing who he can be. Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminds me of that quote about how it's either, I'm going to paraphrase it, but about how courage or bravery is not the absence of fear. That's exemplary of Frank to me, is that he is still scared. He's still awkward, but he's developing the tactics and the skills and the confidence and the bravery to actually take all these things head on. And yeah, obviously being an Asian character, I find a lot of, I think, parallels and comfort in that. So it's just always a delightful thing to come back to Frank chapters.
Yeah, they've been really fun. These two were fantastic. I know the next chapter is also a Frank chapter, so that'll be fun to see where we go from here. But I really like Frank. He's really fun. This whole trio is just so good. Mm-hmm. And it's not to take away anything from the first trio. And I'm really excited for them to come back into the series and see those characters operate in a book that is less world-buildy, set up the world and all kind of that. It'll be really fun to see them all and intermingling and seeing how that all works as well. But yeah, Frank has been lovely and his growth is really fun. And I like that still at his core, he's still, like you said, he's still a little bit awkward. He's still a bit nervous. Even though he has confidence in other areas, he still has that little bit of sheepishness, because that's something that I feel, even though I, have confidence in certain things, whether that is, in my ability to perform on stage or just being in this creative field or social situations even. There's certain things that I feel very comfortable in, but then, you still get those butterflies in little moments. You still get nervous in little moments. You still have those tendencies where I want to ask, was that okay? Right? That wasn't weird. It's okay that I did. There's a lot of that I feel. So for Frank to defeat a giant who is seemingly unbeatable and use it with strength and skill and magic, logic and strategy. Like he did all these different things. And then still he's like, oh, but did Hazel think it was weird that I turned into an elephant? Like I love it. And I relate to that so hard. Because that'll be things like I'll do a live show for TNO or whatever. And I will just like kill it and do amazing. Like everything's great. Things are going awesome, all that. And then backstage I'll be like, Johnny, I said this one thing like kind of weird. Was it weird? And he's like, no one is going to think that. I'm like, okay, like, I'll think of like the worst possible interpretation of like one sentence I said. Like if they take this and give it the least generous read possible, does it seem like I was being mean towards this group of people? And he's like, no. So like, I still have these am I weird for turning into an elephant moments. Yeah. So it's good to see them in Frank.
And he's like, he's 15. Like
that's huge.
Yeah.
It's great. What a lovely set of chapters. What a lovely episode, Alyssa. Thank you so much. I have retitled chapter 47, Welcome to Canada, Idiot, because you just can't beat that. How would you retitle it?
I would say I take a giant ride to Canada.
That's really good. That's really good. That's very fun. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining. If people want to find you doing stuff, where can they find you doing stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again for having me. You can find me, Alyssa, podcasting about the Witcher series at Breakfast in Beauclair. We will be wrapping up Baptism Fire, going into Tower of Swallows, and finishing up with the Witcher in the next, I think, couple of years. Close. The finish line is close. Still podcasting. We're working on the second season of Peculiar Radio and a couple of other new shows over at Lengthy Tangent. You can find me painting around New York City and the world, as it were, at It's an Art Journal on Instagram. And as she was kindly pointed out, if you want to go take a look at any of Piper's photos from last May, you could find her over on Instagram at Piper Cuts.
Lovely, lovely. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And until we see what happens next, if Percy's okay, I'm hoping they go back and they check on him. It'd be funny if Frank forgot about him again, but I don't think that's going to happen until we figure out what's going on. I'll pursue you later. Hello. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you really enjoy the show and you just can't get enough, there's a couple of different things that you can do. First, you can go to patreon.com/The Newest Olympian, and you can get access to all sorts of bonus content that I post on a very regular basis. You also can find us and get involved in the community on social media. We've got an Instagram, we've got a Blue Sky, we've got a Twitter, we've got a Facebook, we've got a subreddit, we've got a Discord that's available to all patrons. If you want to support the show, you can get merch at thenewsolympian.com/merch. You can see live shows at thenewsolympian.com/live, and you can check out the aforementioned Patreon. And speaking of, I want to give a shout out to our highest tier, the Ultra God tier patrons who are helping to produce this show with their financial support. So shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, Vicky Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Abby Ryan, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reedy, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, Grace, Ginger Spurs Boy, A Cup of Solace, Bradamus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Bella, Percy Jacked Son, Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt, Catherine Sloan, Haley Mary, Jim Jam Koopy, Kit Kat Crumbs, Andrea, not Andrea, Jordan Ray, Nico's Black Vespa, and Zayden Wintergate. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, just spreading the show via word of mouth is huge. You can tell someone directly who you think would like the show. You could post about it on social media. You could leave a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really do help, and I really appreciate anyone who has done it in the past or will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tuned into our next episode where we'll be joined by Johnny Frolickstein to break down chapters 48 through 50 live in St. Paul, Minnesota. It was such a good show. You're going to love this episode. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey, everyone, how's it going? It's me, Smart Mix. So as mentioned, I'm in the front closet of our apartment, and there's a bunch of things that make fun noises in here, and I don't ever record mid-roll breaks in here. So let's do some stuff. First, let me collapse and uncollapse, like bring in and extend the handle of the stroller, which is parked in here. And then we also have a step ladder here that gets a lot of play because Kelly's very tiny. So let me kind of, unfold and refold it. And it's very noisy. Thank you so much for listening.